Hi guys, how are you?
Rachel.
Hello, nice to meet you, Rachel. Nice to meet you guys. So to start with a story like this, one of my favorite parts about this movie is how you guys kind of subtly in your own way made it clear that like we are obviously aware of what is going on in war-torn countries, but then it cuts to this marriage and the issues that they have within their marriage, and it feels almost like it doesn't matter because we see what's happening on the other side of her life. For you guys as creatives, how important was it to kind of bring that juxtaposition to life and make audiences see kind of our own privilege in these situations versus the reality that these war torn countries are kind of dealing with?
Um, I think that's a really great question, Rachel. I mean, I think what drew me to the script was the fact that it was a portrait of a brilliant journalist and Anna with and her brilliant career and her amazing achievements and the political change and that she was arguing against, but also it's a portrait of a marriage and of a mother of a colleague and of a friend, and I think those are what make it as a kind of as a film as a piece of kind of storytelling so compelling for me, and I hope, because I think a biography that sort of doesn't deal with the personal kind of impact of what these people are doing often, I think is, you're missing half the story. So I was drawn to that as much as anything really in the whole, storytelling kind of all the choices we made and stuff. The sort of the home life and the emotional side of Anna's life, it was sort of in a way the most important thing for me, and I think that's what people can relate to, and notwithstanding all her amazing achievements and stuff as a journalist, but it was the human story which I was so drawn to, and I hope is a compelling part of the film.
Yeah, I 100% think it is. But I was also going to ask you, Mark, because I am always fascinated by what gets a producer involved in a project and what about it really connects with them. But when you are doing something that is a woman's real story in her life, what for you was the most important part on the production side of things that you wanted to make sure that this movie in particular really brought to life?
Yeah, so I mean, I like character-driven stories, and Anna is was such a remarkable person, and the courage that she showed to speak truth to power and do the things that she did. She was poisoned on a flight from Moscow and survived. She was detained and beaten and harassed, but persevered. And it's just the courage it takes to keep going on and keep speaking your truth, I think, is remarkable. So I mean, that's really what drew me to the story. Just look at who she was, and those are the types of stories that I feel are worthy of shining a spotlight on, and hopefully this doesn't just entertain people, but also educates and informs, so that people kind of become aware of not just who she was, but also what were these issues that she fought for, and what does her story symbolize for those of us today. I mean, it feels tragically timely almost. The issues that she was dealing with, almost 20 years ago, are still incredibly relevant today.
Yeah, and I was going to ask about the timeliness of it because I do think it is interesting that we often use art to talk about how other people have used their voice to stand up in situations like this, where it was a journalist talking to the humans who were affected by this, but a lot of people learn it through art. And so for you, James, when you are, part of that art pipeline and you are kind of the visionary behind telling this story, how important is it for you to both honor Anna's story, but also make it so audiences are involved and learning about this woman and not just being taught a history lesson?
Yeah, I think that's a really, really spot on analysis, Rachel, there, because the key job of a filmmaker is to tell the story, as authentically and as accurate as possible, so the costumes and all that stuff is correct and stuff. But if it's a boring film, then I think you then lessen the message and the impact of the film. So you have to kind of, and it's a tightrope, but walk a tightrope of being honourable to the material, but also making it as accessible and as entertaining, if you like, as possible. So people are drawn in and they're moved and they're outraged and they're kind of shocked, but they're also kind of engaged by it because it's a good film, And if we made a bad film, then we do Anna a disservice, and we do Anna's message a disservice because people won't engage with the story. So you have to sort of manage that
but obviously it's a it is a tightrope, because equally you want it to be as authentic as possible, and people believe that you're in Chechnya, that you're in Moscow, that these people are real, that these things happened, and it's so it's a really important kind of consideration when you're making a true story, that it's as accurate as possible, but also as engaging as possible.
Yeah, and I definitely thought it was. I One of my favorite movies of all time is Zodiac because it's people who are good at their jobs, and
Yeah,
this felt a lot like why I love Zodiac because it was a woman who's good at her job. And so thank you guys for talking with me today. I really appreciate it, and I can't wait for everyone
Rachel,
to
thank you so
experience
much.
it.
Brilliant questions. Thank you. Have a
Thank
Thank you,
lovely
you.
day.
Rachel.
Have a great
Cheers.
one.